Hey there, it's Ella from Spline. Today we're excited to show you how to easily create a minimalistic, abstract 3D illustration. We'll cover some basic tips on controlling your camera and guide you through creating simple shapes using features like Boolean operations and the cloner tool. Plus, we'll add looping animations and interactions to make our scene more fun and lively, which you can easily integrate into your website. It's the perfect guide if you're a beginner in the world of 3D and Spline. So let's get started. Let's quickly review some basics for working with the camera. So to control the camera, you can use your mouse plus the keyboard. For macOS, you can use Option plus click and drag, and for Windows, you can use Alt and click and drag. And something very simple that will help you in the design process is changing the camera's view here. And then you can click here to reset the view of your camera. You can switch to isometric view, and you can change the views between orographic and perspective. So let's start from scratch in a new file. You can create these structures from cubes, but let's explore using a rectangle shape. Hold down Shift and Option, or Alt if you're on Windows, while adjusting the size to scale it evenly. Now change roundness to arc. And let's make the corners rounded by adjusting the values here. Now we can switch to isometric view. This will give us a better idea of the depth and position of our objects. Now for the extrusion, we can increase that here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now let's duplicate this rectangle by using Command D, or if you're on Windows, Control D. I'm going to continue duplicating, adjusting the position, extrusion, and corners of these rectangles to create the composition of my base structure, and I might add in a few cubes as well. Now let's just have some fun and make some taller and some shorter. Now we can duplicate here and adjust the extrude to make a kind of top or floor above the cube. And I'm going to do the same for the bottom part here. All right. Now here we have a little Rubik's Cube. And we're going to add this as an element to decorate our scene. You can create this simply by duplicating and adjusting the position of several cubes, or you could use the cloner tool. So to use the cloner tool, create a cube, activate the cloner tool, and on type, set this to grid. And in count, you can set this to 3 across the board. And here you can adjust the distance between each cube. Now in this rectangle, the first thing I'm going to do is create an ellipsis shape here. And I'm going to adjust the color so it's more visible, and we can make it a ring by adjusting it here. This is to create this kind of mark on the rectangle. Now let's add another element here. Simply click on the plus icon, create a pyramid, and then we can duplicate it, rotate it, move it down to the lower part, and having these two shapes together makes the diamond shape. Now let's move on and create some buttons for this. So again, we will use a rectangle shape. Here I am going to activate the snap settings. Now I want them to be rounded on the sides of the shape. To do that, it's very easy, just double click on our shape and we can select the vector points and adjust our corners like you do with the pen tool to make them more rounded. So let's keep on adding stuff to our design. So for this, I want to add more rectangles and details and a simple version of a computer. So to make the computer, this is really easy. I'm going to add a rectangle for the base, and then I'm going to duplicate this and adjust the pivot point. Then we can adjust the rotation of our screen. Now I'm going to add some more details for the rectangle shapes. So let's make like a pie chart element. To do this, create an ellipses and then adjust the angle, and we're going to keep that at 270. So for our next element here, I'm going to add an ellipses shape here. And on this side, I would like to add a hole. I will create a new rectangle here and adjust the corners and extrusion. Now select this new cube in the base rectangle and then go back to the Boolean modifier. And here I can select the first option, which is subtract. When using Boolean operations, the position of the object in the layer is important, so keep this in mind. The base object is always the bottom layer and the top layer is subtracted from it. Now let's design a toggle to place on top of this tower. Let's create a rectangle shape. In roundness, select arc, adjust the corners, add extrusion. Now let's duplicate and adjust the size while holding Option and Shift. I will adjust the size a bit here. Now again, let's use Boolean and the subtract option. Quickly, I'm going to add a stair composition into the scene. So to do this, I'm going to go to top view and draw my first step using the rectangle. And adjust the corners, and of course, we gotta add a little extrusion. Now we can simply duplicate it and adjust the position manually, or you can use Cloner tool. To use Cloner tool, select the rectangle and activate the cloner in the right panel. Keep the type to linear, and here we can set the amount, and I'm just going to have this at 3 and adjust the position of the cloner here. I like to use Cloner because it makes the spaces between the elements exact, and it's just really fast and efficient to use. And you know what this scene needs? It needs another set of stairs, but this time let's use the vector tool. Now we can trace the silhouette of the stair with the snap settings activated and press Shift for more precision. You can always double click on your shape to edit and adjust the position of your vector points. Let's add extrusion. You can adjust the corner of all the vector points here. Or adjust each one individually if you click on the specific one. You can also adjust the bevel and bevel size. Alright, you can continue to add more details to your composition by adding more geometric figures like spheres, cubes, or integrating some elements from the Spline library. And I also use the vector tool to create this kind of path. Then click on the object, convert to path, and then you can adjust the corners here and the subdivision. Now, this is probably my favorite part, adding some color. You can simply select objects and adjust the colors and lighting as you prefer here in the right panel. You can click here to change the type of lighting and select from Phong, Lambert, Physical, or Tune. And you can click on this plus icon to generate gradients and other effects. You can also use the depth layer to add colors, gradients, or some soft shading effects. Now let's start with this cube, creating a dark pink tone. You can add effects like Fresnel and matte caps to add some shine. I want to maintain a similar color palette throughout this design, but you can use any color you'd like or find other color combinations on the internet for inspiration. And to apply the same color to other objects, you can just copy and paste materials. To do this, just right-click on the object and select copy material and then paste it onto other objects. It's very easy. Or you can create a material asset, which we always like to recommend, especially if you're going to be using a material over and over again in your scene. It just helps keep things consistent and keep things optimized for the web. So once you have your material or that texture that you like, just click on this 4-dot icon in the material panel and then click on the plus icon. Then you can name your material assets and select all of the other objects where you want to apply the same color. If you edit this material, it will affect all the objects that have this material applied. Now you can just continue creating and applying more colors to all the elements of the composition. Now for when it comes to coloring this Rubik's Cube, if we change one part of this, it's going to change all of the cube's color. To apply individual colors to the Rubik's Cube, it's very simple. Just click here on the option that says Convert to Instances. You can explore and mix textures, like using glass in some of the cubes and colors in others. We want to just encourage you to just go for it and try a lot of different combinations. Let's move on to lighting, which is a final and very important touch to any scene. So by default, we have this directional light, which you can change the position and adjust the color intensity. You can also enable or disable shadows here and adjust other settings like resolution, size, blur, etc. You can find and add lights by clicking on the plus icon and selecting between point, directional, or spotlight. Also, there is the ability to enable ambient shadows to add more shading details to your scene. So press Escape as a quick way to deselect everything. In the right panel, enable ambient shadow. This will affect all of the objects in our scene, and here you can adjust the various settings, including the color. Now let's explore how to add animations and different types of interactions to make things come to life. First, let's start with something simple. How to make this diamond slowly float and have it looping. This diamond is created by two pyramids, so what we need to do is ensure that they are grouped, so we're moving both objects as a single object, and then I'm going to name it diamond accordingly. Now with this diamond group selected, I'm going to create a new state and I will adjust the position and set it a little bit higher, adjusting only the y-axis position. Now let's create a start event. In Target, I will make sure the diamond group is selected, and then in transition, I will select my base state and state respectively. If we go into play mode now, we can see our simple transition come to life. But what we have to do is ensure that this animation is going to be looping. So what we have to do is go back to transition and select infinite. As you can see, the action repeats itself, but it doesn't seem to cycle. To do this, go to Cycle and select the ping pong option. Now I'll adjust the timing here to 2, just to make the movement a little slower, and that is perfect. So for our second animation, I will be looking at the Rubik's Cube design. So we first want this to rise, and then I want it to rotate, and then I want it to return to its initial position. So to do this, select the Rubik's Cube and let's create a new state. Now I'm only going to adjust the height in this position. Now let's add another state, and here we're going to add that rotation of 360 degrees in the Y value. And now I can duplicate this state and adjust the Y position to have my cube return to its initial position. All you need to do now is copy and paste the position value to ensure that they are the same. Now create a start event. Add a new transition action. And here I will make sure to add and select my states in the correct order. Click on the plus icon so you can add the other state. Now if I go to play mode, we have this animation, but do you remember how to turn this into a loop? Well, if you forgot, don't worry, we're gonna do it again. So down here in sequence, we can go to loop and select the infinite option. All right, into play mode we go, and we can see our looping animation. Now for some final touches, I'm going to adjust this to 0.5 in each state so that the transition is a little bit faster. And here in delay, we can adjust this to 1 and select start end. This will delay the animation of our cube, just giving it a little pause before it goes into that looping animation. All right, done. And here for this toggle button, the animation is based on 2 movements: the displacement of the ellipses and the color change. To animate the displace of the ellipses, select the ellipses and let's create a new state. And now we can adjust the position and create a new start event. Now adjust the states in the transition. You can add a delay of 1. And here let's select start and end. Again, select infinite loop. And in cycle, select ping pong. So for the color change within the shape, this is pretty simple. So we have this shape inside of the toggle. For the shape inside of the toggle, I've placed these icons. These are actually just SVG vectors that I imported. And now I'm going to select that internal shape, create a new state. And in this state, we're going to change the color in the material panel. Now I will return to the start event that we created earlier, and since I want this to animate simultaneously, we can use the same settings as the ellipses, so all we have to do is copy and paste our transition of the ellipses and then make sure the target is set to the correct one. Pretty easy, and now we have this cool color changing animation. You can also learn how to create an interactive toggle that activates when you click on the cursor. If you want to learn that, check out the tutorial in the description below. So far we've only added some pretty simple animations, and they're looping, so we don't need to interact with them to trigger the animations. But what if we want some interactive elements in this design? So for example, we have this set of stairs. What if we hover over them, the shape of the stairs will change? So to do this, it's very simple. Select the stair and create a new state and adjust the Y size. Now create a new event, select mouse hover, and add a new transition. If we go to play mode, whenever we hover our cursor over the stairs, it's going to affect the steps equally since the element we created was a cloner, so we only have to apply this once. But if we wanted, we could go to the cloner panel and click on the option Convert to Instances so we can apply a certain effect to each step individually. Now let's adjust this to 0.5 and set it to spring, so it's a bit faster and more playful. You can apply the same method to the other shapes by adjusting the sizes in different ways. For example, here if I apply the same method to enlarge the size of a rectangle, and here to make the sphere go up and down when I bring the cursor closer. Another little extra tip and something cool that you can experiment with is adding depth of field to your scene. To activate this, press Escape to ensure nothing is selected and open up the effects panel. And click on the eye here next to DOF to enable the depth of field. And click on the target icon, and you can move this throughout your scene to choose your focal point. This creates an effect where only objects within a specific distance from the camera are sharp and in focus, while the ones outside of the range appear blurred. Another quick tip is to make your scene more interactive by going to Export and in the Play settings, turn on hover. This will make your scene have this slight orbit effect when your cursor hovers over it. And we have come to the end of this tutorial. If you're new to 3D and new to Spline, we hope this beginner-friendly video was helpful to you, and let us know in the comments what else you would like to learn. And as always, I love to mention how you can export and integrate these scenes code-free into your website, iOS projects, and apps. So give that a go, and if you want to learn more about our exports, we have our Spline docs linked down below, and there you can read all about them. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.